Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report. In this daily editorial, I am getting an update from Graphene Manufacturing Group, traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol GMG. I am chatting with the CEO, Craig Nicol. We are going to be touching on the battery development, the Thermal XR division, as well as the upcoming growth in the graphene capacity production as well. So thank you first and foremost everybody who has sent in questions for Craig. I'll get to as many of those as we can, but first and foremost, we do need to recap some of the most recent news. We're going to start on September 11th. When GMG announced the pouch cell prototype, and you provided some next steps towards commercialization. Now, this initial pouch cell prototype comes in at 500 milliamp hours. This is one component. It's really a stepping stone for the company building out this pouch cell division for the batteries. Craig, take us through what's important about now having this prototype for the pouch cell.
Hey, good to be back on. Thanks, Cory. This 500 milliamp hour milestone for the company is really something that we should all celebrate. What it does is it shows that our battery technology, the aluminium-ion battery with a graphene cathode, previously not done anything like what we've done before, so completely novel. It scales. It scales into a pouch cell. It's repeatable. We've got to make it more repeatable. We've got to keep doing the more and more work we do to make sure that it does exactly what we want it every time. But so far, we're very happy with where it's progressed to. We are a bit ahead of schedule, and the next step is to make 1,000 milliamp hours, which we're looking to do for a contract with Rio Tinto, with a co-developer. Now, once we get to 1,000 milliamp hours, we can start looking at how it can be put into the initial module pack, which will be a proof of concept for Rio, which is the thing we need to develop for Rio within the next 2 years. So, very, very big milestone for us. We're developing a complete new next generation battery, and to get to this point, I think should be celebrated. We're at what's called battery technology readiness level 4, which means we are scaling the cell into a pouch cell. We are still working through various different types of opportunities that we have with the cell, as you do. We'll be doing that for forever. This battery has so many opportunities that for decades to come, we'll be optimizing it, making it even better. But right now, we're very happy to get to 500 milliamp hours. The next target is 1,000 milliamp hours, which we really aren't really looking to supposedly get to by mid next year. So if we can get to that before then we're going to be well ahead of schedule, which we think we will be. And then, we'll be then starting to work on how we can put together a pilot plant for that 1,000 milliamp hour.
Okay, so it is that stepping stone, right? Because this initial battery, 500 milliamp hours, then the move to 1,000, it also deals with the different or multiple layers that are within these batteries. So you said mid next year. And is that when we're going to be able to get some more data on testing, such as ability to hold charge, ability to recharge, all the battery data that matters? Will you be testing it then at that 1,000 milliamp hours level?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We kind of get to a point where we go, well, this is where we need to be at, which is definitely the point of 1,000 milliamp hours we've made so far. That's that point where we will start to do all the testing that you would normally see, and then we'll be able to release that data at that point. And if we believe we can push into the scale production of that, then we would go into a pilot plant and start producing that pouch cell in a way which enables multiple companies, including Rio, to test it at scale, which is that's a really exciting next stage to be looking at, which is not too far away.
Now, would you also be looking to increase the capacity even further? Because I had a listener message me and say, look, the latest iPhone uses a battery that has 4,000 milliamp hours. You're working up to 1,000. Is that enough to get into devices or to get into other avenues?
Yeah, it's a great question. It all depends on the applications. Certainly, phones they kind of you kind of want it to go all day. So 1,000 million powers would probably last you to lunch or so, maybe not much more. So that's not good. So that's why they have 4,000 million powers to kind of get you to hopefully through to the end of the night where you can charge it again, and then hopefully probably on to the next day. What we're looking at is an application where you have multiple cells, and the actual cell capacity probably won't be 1,000 million powers at scale. We've just picked 1,000 to get to show that we can scale it, and then after that we'll pick the optimal capacity once it's actually working to show a true outcome. But yeah, 1,000 million powers doesn't tend to get you where a personal electronics market would want you, but we're not necessarily focused on that right now. That's certainly an opportunity, but if we were to go to the 1,000 million powers, if we would go to the personal electronics, yeah, you would have to go to certainly more than 1,000, probably 3.5 to 4,000 million powers is probably where we need to be. But a public partner is Rio, and they'll need lots of cells, and how many of those cells they are, is just a merely multiplication of each cell number, so capacity. So we'll work through the optimal capacity for our initial product once probably we get through our pilot plant range.
Okay, I just also want to talk about the timeline to commercialization that you put in that news release. You already outlined first half of next year into that 1,000 milliamp hour battery, but then it also shows in H1 2025 that could be when you actually scale up to produce these pouch cells for consumer testing. What are the key steps that we need to follow along with looking into 2025?
Yeah, I think that the key steps are to see that we've got the 1,000 million power cell where we need it to be. We also need to do a large format aluminium ion battery for Rio, which we need to work through as well, so which is going to be a larger scale. So that'll be way more than 1,000 million powers to get to a point where it would provide Rio with what they are interested in for their applications. And then when we look to actually publicize the data just to show that it's got the right amount of performance metrics in all the different boxes. There's about 8 different boxes that you need to be getting to. And then at some point, likely before that, we'd be looking at investing in a pilot plant, which would be obviously an announceable decision. So those are the things that we'll work through over the next year and get to hopefully make public. We've got many different options available to us to make the battery where it needs to be. The world is pretty much our oyster, which is maybe difficult to understand. But when you come to making the battery, there are many ways to get there. And we're literally dealing with a whole new atom. The whole aluminium atom is open to us on how we can get it there. And that gives us many new opportunities to get to where we want it to be, which is really quite exciting. So the opportunity is massive. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's clear to get to 500 million powers means we can scale, and now we need to go into the high repeatability and get to the 1,000 million powers, and then get to the large scale, show the parameters, and then do the investment in the pilot plant. But to already get to 500 million powers means that we're on our way.
All right. I do have to ask you, how much capital is it going to take to continue to fund this advancement of the battery?
Yeah, look, it's $2 to $3 million we're generally spending on our development of the battery through different people and contractors and consultants. That's just a very focused effort. There's obviously a lot more work going on around it, including graphene supply and all the management and leadership that you get there. But the next phase, the pilot plant, is likely going to be well less than $5 million, I'd suggest. To be able to get that into that next phase is not going to be necessarily that expensive compared to the opportunity that we have in front of us. And there are many different grants and different types of opportunities that we're talking to about that. But we're not ready to make those decisions yet, but we're certainly prepping our business for how we can get there. So not an enormous amount of funding for this kind of automated pilot plant we'd be looking for, but it's certainly an enormous amount of opportunity that it switches on. So disproportionate cost versus value for sure.
Okay, well, keep us up to date on the development, the advancement of this battery, and please, everyone, keep sending me your questions. Let's move on to Thermal XR. We had a couple news releases late August and early September that really discussed Thermal XR moving towards larger commercialization, especially in terms of operations, being able to produce more of the Thermal XR product. What's important here? What are you doing with Thermal XR to get it more in the hands of potential customers?
Yeah, so Thermal XR is a coating which obviously increases heat transfer, and that's something that some people need to get their head around before they can go and buy it for their business. And so there's a lot of training and conversation and data points and transferring of theory of how it works initially for a new market like this to be built. So with the HVAC or the air conditioning market, we've certainly got that beachhead created with a number of distributors, including Nicol in America, and other distributors around the world. And we've got other distributors that we're kind of talking to potentially to switch on other countries and regions. So that's being created, and I think that we're now really into how do we get ourselves well and truly aware in that market that this product can do what it is, because we've proven that it can do energy savings in the space. So that's well and truly underway, and we're just waiting on an EPA approval to be able to put the product into America, and then that'll enable us to start the whole selling process there, which shouldn't be too far away. We submitted our EPA approval submission not too long ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago, after all the full data was provided, and they've got a very short window to actually work through, and we're pretty confident, given previous graphene approvals been given, that we can get that up. And then we've got a January timeline for full sales to launch with Nicol. So that for Americas, and that's Canada, Mexico, America, Caribbean, about 4,000 different locations. So that's kind of what we're working for. And then the other sectors that this coating can also be used in with enormous amount of value for the customer. And then G&G is for the liquefied natural gas sector, which we've already done one project, and we're working through a range of different companies and some of them quite large to help see how we can use our coating to make more LNG, or to make LNG with less emissions or less power. Then there's also solar. So we've been working through a range of solar projects showing how our coating can increase the power output from solar cells anywhere up to 10% during the middle of the day, and somewhere up to say 4 or 5% for the whole day in hot days. So that application, of course, has got global outcome, global reach, and somewhat protecting the cell, but also increasing its output is something that people, I think will jump at once we've proven it, but we need to get that to where it needs to be. Now, there are other sectors that are kind of linked to HVAC, which are the data center space. So data centers are obviously getting bigger and bigger with all our storage and computer storage and organizational storage. But what's going to really make that go through the roof is AI. They need big data centers to run AI. And of course, we all want AI to be successful. So we've shown in an Indonesian project that we were able to reduce with Thermal XR 20% of electricity costs on the data center. We've got a number of other data centers we're working through. We've got a number of different test cases we're hopefully going to work through in America in some big data centers. So what we'll see there is no doubt some opportunity to explore and progress. And then, there's other sectors, but one other sector that's really progressing well for us is rail. So we're working with a large rail proponent on a project in India where we're helping the Thermal XR improve the aircon efficiency of their rail. The thermal XR's beachhead on HVAC or air conditioning has certainly been created. What we've now got, though, is a plethora of applications, and I've only mentioned a few of them, that the product's been requested to be trialled and demonstrated in other sectors. And so we're picking those carefully and working with, ones that we can really see an impact and help GMG sales, obviously, as fast as we can. And, that's really exciting. To be honest, it's a product that will just keep providing different opportunities, and we've got to try to manage that, focus on that, and get it through.
So now that you do have this blending plant operational for that 1,000-liter blend, it does say you can make 500,000 liters of this thermal XR per year. Is that going to be enough just to support the U.S.? Is that going to support around the world for all of these different potential applications that it could be used for?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's probably one of the biggest nanofluid mixing plants in the world, I dare say. Being able to make nanofluid so fast and so efficiently, so cleanly, certainly very proud of our engineers to get that up and running. How that plant and where it supplies and what markets it supplies, time will tell. We've got a very clear plan of pushing it into the markets we know and getting it pulled into the markets we know it works really well in, and there's a value proposition for it to be attractive for people to see. But there are sectors that no doubt will come out and that I haven't even thought about yet that will come, and where that goes, and the ability to then build another plant anywhere in the world where there's gas is there. Our graphene expansion plant has got all the sign-offs, so we can much easily go and put it in another plant in different parts of the world and then build another one so we can make it locally. And if we need to do that, we will do that. So the initial plant really is enabling us to send out all different products for people to test and see. And then the next step is obviously as it expands to see where to put the next plant. But I think this plant will take us some time to get through. We've got the ability to make all different types of blends in our laboratory as well, which we've just turned on. And what's exciting about nanofluids is that you use very little of the product in itself. You're talking very low percentages. So a little bit of graphene goes a long way, and that's really good for a whole bunch of reasons, capacity-wise as well as cost.
All right, Greg, we've covered a lot here. I guess one overarching topic that everyone's wondering about is potential revenue, bringing in more revenue from the thermal XR. I realize the battery's still in development, so that'll take some time. Could we be expecting any major revenues to come in to help support all this internal growth and development that you are doing at GMG?
Yeah, we're certainly expecting revenues coming in. We've got orders. We're working through the for thermal XR. Working through the country environmental approvals for the product, and then the next stage after that is obviously getting them shipped and taking receipt. So it's certainly in the next stage, and we're building into our becoming a commercial operations business, which is obviously the end game. With thermal XR, we're into our final stage of promote, make, and sell, which is really, really exciting. The approvals for each country. We have our approval for Australia, of course, but we need approvals in every different country we go into to the extent that they need them. So most countries in Asia, we're fine. I do believe that Canada is likely okay. It's America. We're just doing the final, hopefully the final outcome through with EPA. And then that means we're away and into a commercial operation phase for thermal XR. And then we're into optimize and promote, make, and sell, which is, I think, a great outcome. The amount of work that we've done to get to this point will create an effective moat. This is a nanofluid that operates not in a molecular way, but operates in a subatomic way, or otherwise known as a quantum way, and it is difficult to really kind of comprehend. So the usual thing is once you got into promote, make, and sell, you start to see a competitor. We've yet to see one. I'm not saying we won't have one ever, but we need to keep pushing into this market, create that moat as big as we can, because then I no doubt at some point, even though our patent is progressing through for heat transfer coating with graphene, we need to be very conscious. So we've got to keep pushing forward, and that's why we're constantly developing next tech, next generation. And our blending plant alone is technology which will be very difficult to master. There's years and years of knowledge of how to work with graphene and that alone. So, I think the revenues will come in my mind. There's orders already, and we're building the machine to make those revenues, because that's just as hard as actually building the plant to make the product. And in my mind, that those revenues will come through as we've got the environmental approvals, and then as we've got the customer aware of how amazing our product is. So that's the next phase, and I think we're setting ourselves up for that. There's going to be some interesting opportunities that will come across our way which we hadn't thought of. G lubricant is also coming in once we get that through and confirm the product market fit, and we confirm its energy saving potential, which is very difficult to do in an engine. Once we've done that, then I think we'll have two products that'll be sitting out there in the promote, make and sell, which will really help with the revenue. So it's not going to take as long to get the second one out there, but yeah, that will also help with the revenue as well.
All right, Craig, thank you for this update. As I said, please send me your questions, everybody listening, and I'll have Craig back on as more news will be coming out of the company. So I'll get Craig to further explain that and answer all of your questions. In full disclosure, I am a shareholder of GMG. Craig, thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate the update.
Thanks, Cory.